welcome into another episode of the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast. And we're at full strength again, guys. We got Smog back, we got Couch here, and we're ready to talk Week 5. And guess what's back? We're talking power rankings, guys. But before we jump into those, we're going to run you through the weekly waiver transactions that we've seen. There might be a bungle around. And, of course, as always, we got fades and feels at the moment. But, guys, it was a great week 4 of fantasy football for myself in particular. Got my first W and got it over just a terrible opponent.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. It was. I mean, you could have beat me, but you didn't.
Can I say
that's a little preview of a bungle?
Yeah. Can I say
40 points
before we carry on here? I have to say, I was up by 40. We each had 2 players to go. Now, forget who the players were, but I each had 2 players to go. I thought, well, this is locked up, and I was wrong. So I can't wait to hear the bungles. Bring them on.
Yeah, we'll get to him. But Phil, how was Week 5 for you? You feeling pretty good after this week?
I'm feeling great after this week. I got another win, and a little preview. I feel stronger this year. I feel much stronger at some positions. So. And we'll talk about that a little later, but I'm feeling good. I'm riding a high right now.
That's good, and let's quit talking about the things we're going to talk about. And let's talk about them. Do some talking.
Okay.
Okay. Let's get into the weekly transactions here. Who did people add to their team to make themselves a little stronger? Give them a chance at a win this week. And my personal favorite move that happened on the waiver wire was Michael picking up the Buccaneers defense. I really liked this move. I tried to pick up the Bucs myself, lost out on that bid. So he got them for 11. And the number 2 defense on the year, and understandably we're on the waiver wire last week after going up against Kansas City. You don't typically like that matchup, but if you look at what they have coming up, they get to take on Atlanta, rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett with Pittsburgh the next week, and then the absolute dumpster fire that is Carolina in week 7. So you got a good solid 3 weeks before they face Baltimore, which probably is not a start that you're going to want at that point. But a good solid 3 weeks on this pickup, and that's why I really wanted them. But Michael outbid me, and it was good. I like that pickup a lot.
Yeah, and I had another defense, Jacksonville. I was outbid by Rasky to pick up Jacksonville defense, and it's very similar things to what you said about the Bucs. They're number 3 defense overall right now. They're playing Houston. Houston's not good. They're playing Indianapolis the next week. They're not good. New York Giants the next week. And then Denver.
They're not good?
Yeah, and then Denver and the Raiders. I mean, he's got a good, solid defense for 5 weeks before Kansas City in Week 10. And then a bye week in Baltimore. So, good, solid pickup. I really wanted him. Gonna have to go a different route.
That's right. And that's our waiver wire. And the waiver wire was not overly exciting this week, but those defenses always do tend to make a difference. And that is where we're seeing a lot of the money being spent. But that is not to say that this was a boring week transaction-wise. I implored our league to make some moves over the next few weeks. Let's get those trades going. And it happened. We've had 3 trades since, I believe, last Friday. And Cole, you took place in 2 of those. Why don't you give me a breakdown of these 2 trades that you got yourself into?
Let's talk about trades. Trades are good. Trades mean that we're moving players, and moving players means we're building our rosters the way we want them. So I had one trade here with Tanner where I acquired Mr. Garf and
Goff,
sent
yes.
away. Yep, and also Tyler Lockett, and I sent away Matt Stafford, who has had a lackluster year, but we know what kind of quarterback he is, and we know what numbers he can put up. I hate that he had another bad week here for you, Tanner, but I think you're going to like him in the next 8 to 10 weeks for sure. You're going to be very glad you bought. At least I hope. Otherwise, I'm sorry. but that was one trade I made. The other trade I made was for the backup in Tennessee, just kind of locking up just in case Derrick Henry goes down. Although I believe Dontrell Hilliard might come in and be the number 2 in that situation. There's just really good upside to have Haskins here, as he has some potential for a good workload if that does happen. So, and then we had one other trade in this week here. What was that trade?
Yeah, what was
We
that
did.
trade?
What was that
So
trade? That's-
small, I don't even remember.
No, yeah. I mean, just kind of slipped under the radar. No, this was a big one. This one had me distracted for a little while Monday morning. I was just sitting here thinking, it's time to make some moves, shake things up. I was sitting here 0-3, staring at an 0-4 possible season. I'm like, I just got to make some changes. Some things got to change. So I went knocking to the guy who I think has a great run at the championship this year and said, hey, I will give you the number 1 tight end, Travis Kelce. I will give you Devontae Adams, who I believe is still wide receiver like 6 or so right now.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe you ended up pulling a second rounder out of me also in a couple years.
Yes. So the trade, you gave up Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, and what was it, a third?
A third this coming year, yep.
This coming year, and a second of the next. And I gave up Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts, which he was giving me a headache this year, but I'm sad to see him go. He's so young and talented, and I'm still sad. But I got my stack with Kelce and Mahomes now, and I love that. It's the only stack in Kansas City you want. My receivers were not doing well, so Devontae, you traded for youth and future, but not to be diminished this year, and I traded away a lot of future for going for the championship this year. I know Travis Kelce's 32, Devontae Adams is 29, so not as many years left in them as Pitts, but I'm feeling good about it. So,
yeah, and I think it's understandable, and that's kind of one of the things I was going for is like in Dynasty, as much as like we try to balance the value of what players' long-term value is and everything like that, there's times where you just got to take your shot, go all in on players, and go for that championship. And well, that's what it seems like we're doing here for you, Phil, and we'll see how it plays out.
Absolutely, I'm excited.
And that's our trades and transaction talks for the week. But we can't get into the next segment without talking about a bungle. And it's Boggle's biggest bungle. And Cole,
What?
you're the bungle this week. Cole, You had me on the ropes. I would have lost. And all you had to do was start that guy that you traded for, the guy that you just had made a transaction to go ahead and go and get. Had you started Jared Goff, you would have absolutely destroyed me. But instead you started Josh Allen. And I say that's the right move, but not this week. Because 10 points would have been the difference, and that is your bungle. And I'm sorry. But you are the biggest bungle of the week.
I appreciate the crown this week. I do feel like I earned it. If I were to have soup, it would be Bungalaya. So thank you for the nod.
No, that's wrong.
But that's enough of bungling around here. Let's jump into everybody's favorite segment, Fades and Feels. Cole, how does Fades and Feels play out for you next week?
Is it everybody's favorite segment? Okay.
I love Fades and Feels.
I didn't love my picks last week. Picking upsets and underdogs is a tough thing. And some weeks you end up with Austin Eckler having a monster game and Russell Wilson having a very good game too. And those players make your week go 3-8. You don't like hearing that, but once again, it's not picking in favor of the popular opinion. It's picking against it. So I'll take 3-8 as a par week, and hopefully this week's going to be some better numbers. But let's just get into it. I'm gonna rip through these real fast. Once again, Fades and Feels. Fade is a player who's elite, who's probably a top 10 or top 20 player, who I predict is going to be softer than wet cheese for the week. And then a Feel is a lower tier player who I feel is just going to go hard in the paint, put up some big numbers. So here we go. Quarterback. This week I'm fading Justin Herbert. He comes in at quarterback 5. Not in my opinion. He's going to have a bad week. Feel at the quarterback position, I have Trevor Lawrence coming in at 13. He's having a great year. He's going to keep having a great year this week. It's going to be a monster game for him because they go up against Houston. Running backs, I have a fade for Dameon Pierce this week. Last week he blew up. I think he comes a little bit back down to earth this week and has himself a lower fantasy production than 16. My feel for running back is Jeff Wilson. He's coming in at running back 25 for the week. I think last week he got a little taste of how good he can be when he gets the backfield, and I think it's going to keep going from there. And now at the wide receiver position, my fade is Hollywood Brown. Another monster performance last week. I think he comes back down to earth again. Wide receiver 15, I think he's more in the 25 to 30 range. Although they do have a matchup against the Eagles, so maybe they're going to be throwing the ball out, but also the Eagles' defense is very strong. And then my feel for wide receiver, I have Chris Olave. Strong year, strong performance. He's 24 ranked on this week. I feel like he can easily break that top 15, top 10, no problem. Tight end, I got a fade of Pat Freiermuth. This is just another matchup-based thing. I just don't see him with Pickett throwing the ball to him, throwing up a good game. Maybe I'm totally off on this one. Analysts think he's going to be the 7th tight end this week. I disagree. And my feel at the tight end position, Dalton Schultz. Last week, non-existent, 3 targets, no catches. This week, I'm calling it 1 touchdown, 60 yards, 7 receptions. So that's my fades and feels, week 5. We're going to shoot the moon this week. We're going to go 8-8. So how do you boys think about those?
I think if you don't go 8-8, you're done.
Take me out back and bury me after that. I'm doing it.
No, I think
like
a lot of them are, a lot of them are good matchup based, no nonsense. Like I understand a lot of them. So
yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's time for us to get into it, guys. Let's get into what everybody really wants to hear about. Let's get into the power rankings. We did this to start the season. We made predictions about who we thought was going to be, coming out hot, taking the lead at the start of the season, who's going to have the best chance at a championship. And things have played out quite differently, I think, than what a lot of, or at least Phil and I were anticipating from the start. Let's just go ahead and jump into this. We're going to work our way from the bottom to the top, starting from going with our consensus rankings here. And the consensus number 10 overall here is still Tyler. Tyler was number 10 at the start of the year. We all put him there still currently right now. And I think for me, the thing that is just going to be tough for his team this year is really depth. When his team is healthy and not dealing with bye weeks, it's pretty formidable, right? If he has DeAndre Swift and Ezekiel Elliott in, if he has Mike Evans, Alan Lazard, and DeAndre Hopkins, and then Zach Ertz, and can find a flex, Rodgers at quarterback, like that is a formidable starting lineup. But it's thin when you go anywhere after that. And starting with Mike Evans having a game with a suspension, having Hopkins out for 6 weeks, it hasn't done any favors at the start of the year. So it's just a tough one. My advice is do not give up on the season, but also whatever you do, do not trade away that first-round pick next year. There is a certain running back from Texas that everybody is going to be real hot and bothered for, and you are not going to want to give that up. So hold on to that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyler's team is where it was, but I mean, last week he put up 123 points with what he put together, and that's a good score. So he obviously can put up those points. It's once D Hop comes back, and he can put up points. So I think he'll be just fine. But right now he's sitting at 10.
That's right. And our number 9 is Cole. Cole, this can be a place where we are honest with ourselves. This is going to be this is a safe space.
Very safe.
And,
I feel safe.
You can talk to us to just kind of vent and let us know what's going on with your team. Because we all had you at 9. And how do you feel about that?
Feel like I am exactly where you've placed me. It's humbling to say, but I know what I am. No, my team is exactly what it was at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of question mark players on my bench. Some of my starting roster has gotten a little better, but still too many question marks to really say that there's depth at any position. And when you have that, it's tough to have a really good, strong fantasy year. And that reflects with the 9th ranking. So not upset about it, not giving in the towel just yet. I had you on the ropes last week. I lost by 3 points. The week before that, I lost by 6 points to Ben. I'm going to be in games. Maybe I get some lucky late touchdowns on Monday night in some other matchups later this year. And we're talking about me being a 6th power seed. I don't know. That's probably wrong, but I like being optimistic, and I think it's unfair to say that I'm going to finish at a 9, but definitely where I'm at. So here we are. Let's try to go to the upward direction from here on out.
If they can figure out the Rams' backfield situation, maybe you get bumped up, but.
The Rams just need to figure them. The Rams just need to figure themselves out, whatever they are.
You mean the Los Angeles Cooper Cups?
Yes, that team.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Higbee's also a good share of that
That's
team.
true. That's
Yep.
true.
Yeah, he's been Hig big. Nah?
No, and I think my biggest downfall this year for sure has been Cam Akers. I've started him twice. Once he put up a 0. The second time I started him, he put up a whopping 1.3 to Nick last week. In the weeks I didn't start him, he put up 7 and 10 points, and both those weeks were in the games that the Rams won. So he's a script-dependent fantasy performer, and we don't see any consistency from the Rams right now. So picking and choosing a week for a running back that's only going to get at best 60% share is not a good idea. So I'm definitely not going to be telling you any fibs how Cam Akers is going to have a great year. I don't see it, but he's definitely got potential. So I can't give him away for nothing. And I'm looking at next year already for him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So who do we got next on the rankings then?
Yeah, next up on the rankings is Tanner, who has fallen 5 spots. We had him up in the number 2 spot at the start of the season, and things just really kind of haven't worked out in my eyes. Phil, why don't you give us a good rundown of this team and kind of where you're sitting with it? Because I believe he was number 6 in your rankings, right?
Yeah, he is number 6. He's dropped for me. How many? Down. I think I had him at number 4 for my rankings week 1. So I still really like his team. I think Russell Wilson is getting better. So he can hang his hat on that. But Barkley's amazing. Jonathan Taylor has been lackluster after week 1. I don't think it's going to completely. He'll be much better as the season goes on. Montgomery's a little hurt, so he's had some bad luck. But with CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Chris Olave's looked amazing this year. Bateman flashes, and his team is still good. And I hate that he's down so far, but I think a lot of other people's teams have surprised. So that's where we have him. 6. I have him at 6. Cole has him at 7. You have him at 7. But I think when we talk in 4 weeks, he could be at 2.
Yeah, I agree. There's still tons of upside with this team. Still quite a bit of depth. It's just the couple of the injuries at the running back position, with Taylor being hurt, Patterson being hurt, and David Montgomery being hurt. It just makes you scared for the next couple games of what that's going to do to his team in terms of putting himself in position for a playoff run. And then, also do those injuries linger longer or something like that. So that's kind of where my concern was with this team moving forward. Still an awesome roster. It's going to be good for a while. It's just those injuries are concerning.
Yep.
And I think for these entire consensus rankings that, honestly, maybe 3 through 7 or 3 through 8 here, they could easily be flopped in a couple weeks. I don't see any of these locked in where they're at. That's how close this middle of this group is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still early. A 1-3 team. I was just saying this earlier to you guys. A 1-3 team right now is 1 game out of the playoffs, right? So you're 1 game back. That is it at 1-3.
I'm just one out.
Absolutely,
I'm just 1
still
game out. That's all.
That's it. So it's still early. The season has just begun. But let's get into our other player here. We had 2 teams tied in the 7 spot. It was Tanner with 1. Joe takes up the next spot. And Joe was our consensus number 1 at the start of the year. now falling down to the 7th spot. He fell
Biggest fall.
down.
Biggest
Yeah,
fall.
it is. It's the biggest fall that we have so far that we've seen. And it looks like, Phil, you had him the lowest here at 8. Give me a rundown. What are your biggest concerns here that you're seeing on this team?
Well, I think I had him up closer to like 6 or 7 until Javonte Williams got hurt. So Javante's out for the year. He finally got like the workload in this last game, and he's out for the year now. Tears his ACL, LCL. So that's a huge blow to his team. Another thing is Dalvin Cook has not looked like the Dalvin Cook of the past as of yet. I think he's currently running back 24, highest point scored 13. That's not what you want from Dalvin Cook. So until the Vikings get their offense together, Dalvin Cook is ranked lower for me than he was at the beginning of the year, where I had him at 1. And also his receivers. A.J. Brown's been amazing. Mike Williams is a roller coaster. You know, he'll hot one week, off the next, and he has amazing receivers, but all of them have put up less than what I thought they were going to put up at the beginning of the season. So that's why I've dropped him so far. I still think he's in contention for the championship, obviously, but that's what I was looking at when I ranked these guys. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think that injuries to the running back position, I mean, right now Javonte out, Khalil Herbert is good when he's in, but he's kind of just a rental right now. So yeah, it's Dalvin Cook, and then, you know, I think Jeff Wilson can be good, but after that, you don't really have a lot of trust in anyone else. So when you're kind of just rolling on 3 running backs, that it starts to get a little bit scary.
Spooky.
right, and at the beginning of the year, we all thought ETN was going to surpass and be awesome, but we haven't seen it yet. James Robinson keeps going like he never tore his Achilles. So, yeah, it's just different expectations now at week 5 than I had at week 1, and so the cookie crumbles. So the cookie crumbles? Is that how that saying goes?
That's how it is.
I think you bungled that phrase, but we'll go with it.
It's fair.
It's fair. That checks out. Next on the list is myself. So my team comes in at 6th, and I have dropped down. We had me ranked up at 3 at the start of the year, and now I'm down to 6. And I understand the fall. Started 0-3. My team did not help in any way of trying to get me to that championship that I had my sights on at the start of the year. But luckily got a win last week. And some of these guys, I don't even know what to do. I like almost every player on my team. It's just they haven't done what I want. Like Kamara hasn't done it, and Adams was Adams was actually good, but Debo wasn't putting up Debo numbers, and then Cooper was great on my bench, and I throw him in and he gets me 1 point. I just haven't known what to do. Josh Jacobs has been great, and just dying. What sums up my entire season so far is I am 2nd in the league in max possible points for my team, but I am actually but I'm 1-3, right? And
yeah,
not doing well. So I just have not been doing well, having good start-sit spots. And then I made the trade that we talked about that I do think makes my team not quite as strong for this year. So it's fair that I have dropped down. But how do you guys see it?
Yeah, I had you at the beginning of the year at 3, I think, or 4, and now I have put you at 8. Unfortunately, I think your bungling of start-sit decisions has done some damage. Giving up Travis Kelce doesn't make you better at the tight end position.
Does not.
And then Devontae Adams leaving is, you have good receivers, so I don't think it makes your team that much worse. But yeah, that's how it shook out this year, and
Yeah.
but
see.
you're still
we'll
in
see
it.
how-
I mean, I think you could
Right.
win the championship just like anybody else. So
And I'm going to be the first one here to throw out the challenge flag on your position. So, Nick,
Yeah, Cole's-
on my rankings.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
On my rankings, Nick, I had you at 2, and obviously where you're seated right now, on the yearly standings, we can see why you guys are leaning towards you at 7, or 6, and I just don't see it. Nick, you've put up the second most points, and not that you've been able to start those players. You put up the second most points, and I like a lot of the second half of your players here. I'm buying Lawrence. I'm buying Pierce. I think Samuel's got a great floor the rest of the year. Jones is still going to be productive. Samuel is Samuel. You're not missing there. Cooper is going to keep putting up decent numbers. Njoku has been really involved as a tight end. He's such a good price. I don't know how long have you had Njoku on your team, Nick?
Stashed him at the end of last year. But yeah.
Smart, real good. And even Josh Jacobs is looking like an upward momentum for the rest of the year. So, and your depth is fairly decent. I know a lot of injuries have made it look worse right now, and you've bought in a little for the future, but I think strong second half, and that's why I challenged the play. Maybe it'll get overturned, or maybe
We'll
it'll
see.
be.
I think
Maybe
you're
it'll
gonna
be-
lose a timeout, Cole.
I think timeouts are overrated. So
I appreciate it. I need the little boost of confidence, especially as we start kind of talking about these upper echelon teams that we're going to get into here. Our 5th ranked team is Ethan, who was in a tie for 4th at the start of the year, and he is now sitting at our 5th spot. Phil, give me a rundown of what do you see in this team that gets you excited and optimistic, and where are your concerns?
So at the beginning of the year, I had him at 5. And you had him up at 4, so that's where the tie was. I've actually moved him up to 4, so I think he's done obviously good. I think what I see is Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all amazing. However, having Tua go down, I don't think he can support 2 wide receivers like Tua had in the beginning of the year. So I think we'll see Tyreek blow up, and Jalen Waddle will have a little bit less output, or vice versa. Cooper Kupp, I think he has 1,000 targets on the year. He's going to be amazing. But, at the tight end position, Dawson Knox, he's been not great. But, good potential. It's a good offense, and his running backs have been, Fournette's been fine, but kind of hovering around 10 points, 10 to 15, I guess. But Dobbins looked amazing last week.
Right.
I think he is injured right now, but I don't know if he's going to play.
Yeah,
I like this team. I really like this team. Like Cole said earlier, the middle of I think he went from number 2 to like number 4 to like number 7, and then I settled in at number 4. So it was all over the board.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his roster, I think his only issue that keeps him from the upper echelon is maybe a little bit better production and depth at running back. He's not doing terrible, don't get me wrong. Penny's somebody you don't sleep on too much. Dobbins is looking like he might turn out to be something, and Fournette's always been consistent. And he's extremely deep at wide receiver. He's got Keenan Allen that's going to be coming back. He's got Odell Beckham that I think he's going to get signed later on in the year and have some good numbers there. So I know why he's at 5, and he could easily, like Phil was saying, he could easily move up quite a bit, but also an injury or two at running back, and then he's back down 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. I agree. And we talk about these injuries and what happens when these players on our team aren't available and why depth is important. And I think that's some of the question marks that we start to see with some of these teams, right? Where they're so top heavy and the starting lineups are awesome at the start of the year. Everybody, for the most part, is healthy and looking good. But as the season goes on, we're going to start seeing some injuries. Bye weeks are going to start coming into play, and it's going to shake things up. So things will definitely be very different than what we see right now. But right now, we have the other team that Ethan was tied with for 4th place now holding down that spot all alone, tied up for now the only 4th place ranking here, Michael. Cole, what is it about Michael's team that you really like?
It's the same thing that everybody would like about this team. Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. You don't get one terrible game out of any of those people more than 2 weeks in a row. High ceiling. Every one of them. Breece Hall's coming on. Edwards-Helaire has really outperformed his draft ranking in redraft leagues. There's not a lot of problems with this team other than Allen Robinson here, maybe.
He's just
quarterback,
a dumpster fire.
the quarterback position's kind of a question mark right now with Minnesota not being as an elite offense this year yet. And then the depth slows you down a little bit. Huge number 1s, number 2s in all their positions as running backs and wide receiver, but look at the bench here. Your next best wide receiver, Noah Brown, maybe. That should scare anybody. Higbee is okay as a backup tight end. Not that you need a whole lot of tight end support, but with having Hawkinson in there. So yeah, I think you could easily have him right where he is. Phil, where are you sitting on Michael's team here?
Yeah, I think right now we all have him at 5. I originally had him at 3 week 1 due to his starting lineup, and I thought Allen Robinson I was really into Allen Robinson. Nick, I know you were not, and you are correct, sir. So good job. But it's still a great starting lineup. Kirk Cousins is serviceable. He's not going to put up Lamar numbers or anything like that, but it's really the bench. That's the only thing that's keeping him from being number 1 on these power rankings is the depth that he has. If one person goes down, if he comes up to a bye week I mean the bye weeks are going to kill him too, because you're taking one of those star players out and then it doesn't look good. So when these bye weeks hit, I think we're going to see him lose a few more games. I know it's crazy. He has the second most points scored under, someone we'll talk about a little later. But he's the second most points scored, and it's because the bye weeks haven't shown up yet, and his team's healthy. So we'll see how it goes on. But I think 5 is the right spot for him. I have 4 consensus, but I put him at 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all did. We all had him at 5, but that just kind of, based on how it scored out, shook out that we liked him a little bit better. So than some others. But now we're into it, guys. We are into the top 3. This is the upper echelon we're getting into here, and this is a player that has moved up 4 spots in the rankings. Ben's team, and this was a team that I was optimistic about at the start of the year, but like there were a lot of question marks, right? Like it was kind of how are all these players gonna turn out for his team? We weren't exactly sure. Like, is T. Higgins gonna keep getting all the work, and like what's DK Metcalf going to be, what's Deontay Johnson going to be, you know, with a different quarterback and stuff. And we weren't sure what you would get out of Treylon Burks, and Nick Chubb has absolutely gone off. So like he's the number 1 running back on the year right now. So this team has hit and is looking really, really well. And I was realizing as I'm running through and looking at these players, I'm scrolling into the bench and talking about guys on his bench of guys that are hitting. And that's why he makes his way up into this 3rd spot, is he has depth. He's got DK Metcalf and Deontay Johnson sitting on his bench right now. Both would be starting on most teams in our league. Dalton Schultz is sitting on his bench. Because he's got Darren Waller. Like, he's got depth where he's going to be able to keep powering through and making his way through those bye weeks too. So really for me, it's just still waiting to see like the massive game with huge upside from it. But he is such a strong team that I don't think he's ever going to have a down week either. Like, you're going to have to put up a good score to beat this team.
Yeah, I was looking through past weeks, and he's hovering around an average of like 120 points scored. One week he's scored 150, and then he's hovering around 120. Those are good points to put up. Those will win you games. And Nick Chubb being the number 1 wide running back, and he's got Stephon Diggs, the number 1 wide receiver on the year. You'd think it'd be Cooper, but that 40-point game that he put up in week 2 was pretty great. His team is doing amazing. His team's doing really well. So,
yeah, he lost that week that he put up 150 points, which is just ridiculous.
Which is insane. Yeah. So,
yeah. But all right, the next 2 teams I think are like the tier break. These are the 2 teams that if I was to take betting odds on who are the top 2 teams to win our championship this year, these are my 2 favorites. Second place, moving up 4 spots from the start of the year, is you, Phil. And like we said, this is a safe place. You're probably feeling pretty good, but is there some fear? Is all the hype going to get to you? How are you feeling?
No, I'm very confident. All the hype, bring the hype, man. Austin Eckler didn't look good at the beginning of the year. He blew up. I think he's going to continue to be awesome. Joe Mixon that offensive line is terrible, but he's been putting up decent points. Getting Devontae Adams, that's where I was most worried about, was my wide receiver core. I was starting Juju. My head hurt every week switching between Jerry Jeudy and Juju and Adam Thielen, and I was getting such a headache. But now that I have Adams and Pittman, and Jerry Jeudy looks like he's coming on when that offense starts clicking, so I think he'll continue to get better. James Robinson, of course, has started out on my bench and has moved his way into my starting lineup because the work he's getting is not what we thought. We thought ETN would get a lot of it, and it looks like they're riding James Robinson. And Pat Mahomes and Kelsey now with the stack. I'm really happy about that. Very, very happy. So, you know what? number 2 feels right. Number 2 feels right.
Yeah,
Well,
I
there's
had you at number 1, so that's
Thank
how
you.
I was feeling about it.
And the thing that stops me from putting you at number 1, Phil, is it. Forgive me for last week. Austin Eckler having a big game. I still
Oh yeah,
I
thank
still
you for
think it.
fading him.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I still think he's going to have a down year, and I know
Sure.
what the stats say right now is that he is running back number 3. Bold prediction
In PPR.
in PPR. Yep. Which were half point PPR, so maybe he's running back 6.5 point PPR or something. But I just bold prediction he's not gonna be. He's going to be startable, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to get you those 20-point games you got used to. I think he's 10s here on out. That's going to be enough for most people. But if you want to be a number 1 team, you need those number 1 running backs. So maybe Mixon will carry the weight of it. I do think he's going to be a top 10 for sure, if not top 5 this year. I guess the only other issue I have with not giving you a number 1 ranking, you kind of solved it by getting Adams. So maybe you are at that spot. Yeah, I've got no issues with any of these players. You're set to make the playoffs, and it's probably 1 or 2 moves away from getting locked in. So congrats, sir, for now.
Yeah, I just hope I don't get to the championship and go up against this next guy and Lamar and Mandrews go off again. Lamar's having an MVP season. I mean, he's doing amazing. So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about
Let's talk about it and go on.
Let's talk about it, and it's Jordan, the highest, the largest riser in the league, moving up 6 spots. We had him at 7 to start the year, and he is sitting firmly at number 1. He was my number 2, and then Cole and Phil, you guys both had him at number 1, and I have no problem with that at all. I was saying this the other week. We were talking about your team, Phil, and we were saying, well, maybe if this player hits, and maybe if this player does this, and maybe if this one was. That's what it was for like Jordan's team at the beginning of the year when you were looking at his lineup, where we were talking about like, well, maybe if Cortland Sutton's the one, and like maybe if Christian Kirk can produce with Trevor Lawrence, and maybe if Drake London, can come in and have an impact right away. And guess what? He has hit on every single one of those. And that's the big thing. We talk about Lamar, we talk about Mark Andrews, and they've been incredible. And Jalen Hurts has been incredible. But he's gotten consistent, solid, just like great performance from all of his players, like that we were all kind of had question marks about. Like they've all hit. And that's the big thing for me. Like this team it went from being question marks to being deep and having a very strong starting lineup.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. I mean, the depth is there. A couple of these players start performing poorly. You can sub somebody, and that's probably on an upswing. And, last week I think Kirk, London, and Mandrews combined for maybe 10 points total. I'm sure that'll never happen again from their output this year. But there's nothing I hate about this team. Every player is not only performing at a high level, but has a good look for the rest of their season. The matchups are nice, and their involvement has been terrific. And yes, question marks are answered. There are exclamation points.
And I will say this about his team. I think he picked up Jamal Williams.
Yeah. Or last round of the draft, I think. I think he snagged him in the 4th.
My goodness.
Yep, he picked him up in the 4th, and Swift having those injuries really boosted that up. 23 points in the last 2 games. He's the RB6. Obviously, when Swift comes back, he's not going to put up those numbers. So that's a little bit concerning. And Najee Harris, running back 26 on the year, hasn't been he's consistently been around 10 points. So, his running, but then also Miles Sanders, they're starting to actually give him the ball a few times, and he's putting up a ton of points, running back 8 on the year. So his running backs have kind of been fluctuating for him, and they're doing great. So that would be my only concern of his, but I'm not concerned. So if I had a concern, that would be
we've seen Williams gets a decent amount of carries even when Swift's healthy. So I think he gets most of the red zone targets. And then even Najee only being 26 on the year, I think that middle of the line on him, I think he's going to maybe be a top 15 running back by the year's end.
I do think it's going to go up. His
it will
production,
go up.
So.
I think so too.
Especially with the quarterback change there. Sorry, go ahead, Bog.
Right. No, and one of the other like sneaky waiver wire moves this week was adding Latavius Murray. He could step in and have a role in Denver, and then like Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is on the upswing in New England, at least in terms of like,
agree with that.
If he needs to flex him, he always can. So like, and Kareem Hunt's always flex worthy. So like, yeah, these running backs are wavering, and like maybe one of them will have a downturn that he needs to bench, but he's also got guys he can throw in there too.
He's got the best 2 quarterbacks in the league. He's got a very strong set of wide receivers so far, and not going to bet against him.
Yeah, if this was a 2 quarterback league, he's locked.
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Watch the rule proposal come in.
Right, yeah.
The year.
Exactly. That's what he's gonna propose. So
yeah,
it's crazy that like one of the better draft picks so far out of the year. I mean, it's early still. Is a player that's not a rookie.
Yeah, Jamal Williams in the 4th. Yeah. Wow. That's why like those later rounds, like you can still get those free agent guys that. They can hit.
Can do
you
things.
Never know.
Yep.
That's the power rankings as they stand right now. We'll run it back down. So we got in first place Jordan, Phil sitting at 2, Ben at our 3rd spot, Michael at 4. I apologize. Ethan at 5, myself sitting at 6, Joe and Tanner tied for 7th, Cole at 9, and Tyler at 10. But that is after week 4, and there is 11 more weeks worth of games before we even get to the playoffs. A lot can change, and we'll reconvene after another 4 weeks and kind of see where things stand and how they shake out. But for now, guys, that's it. That has been the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast. That has been the Power Rankings Show. And we'll be back next with you next week, and we'll jump back into some of our weekly previews, and maybe we'll have another new segment for you. But thanks for tuning in, and best of luck.